Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with Monday Special. And tonight we want to know about the Kenya that you want to see for children. But they are here today to tell us more about the country that they want to see as well. We have representatives from the National Children's Government and the National Students' Council. And joining me on set as well is Mr. Nakulo Fidelis. He's the Deputy Director, Quality Assurance and Standards, National Coordinator of Child-Friendly Schools Program from the Ministry of Education, Science and Technology. So maybe I'll start off with Danny. Danny Kinaro is the President of the National Children's Government. And I want to start by asking you, let's start with something that's current. Given the recent drama at Langata Road Primary School, which we saw, and we saw children being tear-gassed, etc., how do you plan to safeguard all pupils and teachers throughout the country from those who you think want to steal the opportunity for children to learn in Kenya?
Well, as children, we have rights, though they come with responsibilities. And as children, we expect that our rights are upheld, and of which one of them is a developmental right, which is more so playing and getting to interact with each other. And I'd also like to call upon to everyone else to help us, not just the teachers back at the administration, but also to the NGOs and to the government to come and help, not just for this land programs and all, and land grabbing schemes and all, but just to also protect the rights that could be violated, not just now, but in times to come.
In times to come. Okay, and maybe I can also ask Caroline Minor, if I can throw this to Caroline. She's the President of the Nairobi Student Council. Caroline, what are your thoughts? Caroline? You have the mic? You have the mic. What are your thoughts on the tear gassing? We saw children being tear gassed and children also demonstrating. Did you agree with that? Is that something that you thought was a good idea or not a good idea for children to be at the forefront of protests?
First and foremost, according to the Convention of the Children's Rights of the UN, every decision that should be undertaken should be at the best interest of the child. Seeing that the tear gassing was being used, it wasn't to the best interest of the child, because the child in the end suffered. Actually, one of the girls was even admitted in the hospital. So every decision taken by the parent, the guardian, even the government as a whole, should be at the best interest of the child.
Okay. And then I can also ask Fatma Omar the same question. I want to know also whether you think it was wrong for students to be holding placards and to be demonstrating and for pushing down walls. What do you think of that?
Well, to answer that question, I would like to pose a question to you.
To me?
Yes.
Okay.
How would you feel when your rights are being violated? How would you feel?
Violated.
So what do you think you should do for that?
As a grown-up?
Yes, as a grown-up.
Well, obviously for us it's about protecting, and as Carol said, just the rights of children. But as children who are voices for children in this country, do you think it was wrong for children to be at the forefront of demonstrations? Or do you think they had every right to be at the forefront of demonstrations?
Well, I do not support their way of trying to resolve it.
Yeah.
But circumstances forced them to do that. So before anything is taken or any action is taken or any land is grabbed, whatsoever over school, you should think first before you act.
Yeah. Okay.
And know that we as the children are ready to fight back when our rights are being violated. Yes.
All right. Halima Ismail is the national speaker from Nairobi County, and it sounds like you want to respond to what Fatma is saying and also to the issue of what happened at the school.
Yeah, if I could add something on that, tear gas is a form of pepper spray. If you do that to a child, it causes inflammation to the eyes, nose and mouth. See, what an adult can take, a child is so vulnerable. And I like to call on to the government not to let matters get to this point, because they should, if any matter is concerning a child, they should act on it immediately before letting a child go down pushing walls and at the end getting hurt.
Okay, thank you for that response. I'll come to another question and also get Ronald, and I'll introduce him just now. And after this question, I will also ask Mr. Nakulu to tell us about the genesis of the children we see here. So the other question, and I'll address this to Ronald Griffiths, who is the president of the National Student Council, to comment briefly on what your peers have said here, as we also talk a little bit more about the recent teacher strike and how you think that affects children in Kenya. Ronald.
So maybe first of all, I'd like to say that the children's act of demonstrating against the land grabbing was actually a good move by the students, because if it weren't for that, the issue of land grabbing could not have been addressed in the whole country. And second of all, I think it was the right to fight for what they know is theirs. So beside that, I'd like to go to your question on the teachers' strike.
Yeah.
Teachers' strike, as you all know, teachers not going to school, which is not good for the students.
Yeah.
The students require teachers who guide them on what they should read, and also guidance on what they should do in school.
Okay.
So what I want to say is that the teachers' strike really affected the students in Kenya, and I'd like maybe just to say to the representative of the Ministry of Education that maybe you should take more interest on the teachers' strikes, because it really affects the students of Kenya.
All right.
Yeah.
And I can also throw the same question about teacher strike to Patricia Kamene. Patricia Kamene is the Deputy Speaker from Kangundo, and she also represents children with special needs. Patricia, briefly, if you can tell us more about whether you think the teachers were striking in the interests of students or in their own interest. What do you think?
Okay, remember one thing. Everybody has a right. They have their right as teachers. And remember, actions speak louder than words. Maybe they thought this was a good idea to them. But remember, on the other hand, it affected the children. Most of the special children, we were affected because we lost a lot of time at home, spending our time at home, while that time we were supposed to be in school. Another hand, that it is just an issue that the government is, they are supposed to take they are supposed to be serious, because education is the key of success. Without education, we cannot survive. Janet Bogwa, I have one question. Imagine if you were denied education those long time ago that you were in school. Could you be here?
Probably not.
Could you be here?
No.
A good question. So think about
we need to think about it.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Patricia. I think now is a good time as any, before we hear from Elijah and Clinton as well, and Salat and a few of the other students. Mr. Nakulo Fidelis, this is obviously a very, a group of very courageous, outspoken students and children who really represent the voice of children in Kenya. Could you briefly tell us the genesis of how the National Children's Government came to be and what their ideal role is?
Thank you very much, Janet. First, I'd like to thank Citizen TV for giving our children an opportunity to really talk about the Kenya we want. And indeed, what they say is the Kenya we want is what we adults also want to have. Now, the children's government is not a new thing. It only started recently here in Kenya, but it is in many countries in the world. And the children's government emanates from the Convention of the Rights of the Child and also our 2010 Constitution, where we are espousing the rights of every child, particularly the right to education. And in school, we know that all schools are supposed to offer education of good quality. So these children know what is good education, and giving them a chance to voice enables we adults also to have checks and balances to enable us to really talk about education. So the children's government was started a few years ago after the promulgation of the Constitution, and the children were given opportunity to elect their leaders. Previously we had the prefect system, and in many cases prefects were appointed by the school authorities. And so the learners would see them as representing the authorities, so the extension of the arm of the head teacher and so forth. So they were lost by their colleagues. So this is an opportunity for having leaders who have the support of the learners.
If I can also bring in what some of them have talked about, the strike, as we move on to other issues, and how you feel as someone in leadership, and really this is bridging the gap between the children. This is giving the children who don't have voices, these are their voices, and they're able to then talk about them and project them. Do you think, as a ministry, as a government, as a leadership, you've let the children down, or the children were thoroughly let down regarding the teachers' strike? What are your thoughts on that?
Now, the teachers' strike definitely affected the children. The children suffered because they lacked teachers to teach them in the classrooms for the period of 2 weeks, and that was really bad. However, teachers are employees like anybody else. Today we are having nurses in Eldoret going on strike. Patients are suffering. So there are issues which, when not resolved amicably, definitely spill over and go beyond such levels. And so, like in education, the children suffer.
As an extension, they suffer.
As an extension.
Okay, we'll continue to interact. Let me now pose this question to Clinton Chase, the Minister for Justice, Peace and Cohesion, very quickly before we take a break. And Clinton, the question I have for you is whether you think, generally, do you think that the government has done enough to secure learning institutions in the country?
Okay, let me say they have almost done enough. They have done enough, but they have not completed. So I'll just advocate for the government to keep doing the good deed they're doing, so that the children in the whole country can know that they have their rights and their rights can be protected. And I'll also tell the citizens that they are the ones to protect and tell the children that they have their rights. Thank you.
Okay. We have to take a short break. We're yet to hear from Elijah and Salat. So we're going to take a very quick break and continue to talk about the issues that children in Kenya feel affect them. You can also text us on 22422. Please leave your name and location and use the hashtag MondaySpecialKE on Twitter. We'll try and sample some of your views a little later on. Stay with us. Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with Monday Special, where I wanted to say one day because of wonderful children. That's what I meant to say. Monday Special, where we're talking to the children of Kenya about the Kenya that they want to see, obviously addressing some of the serious issues that have affected children over the last few years. And now I want to move to Elijah Zachary. Elijah Zachary is an HIV advocate. And Elijah, I can start by asking you, do you feel a sense of, or do you think that there's discrimination against children like yourself, children living with HIV in Kenya? Have you felt discrimination, or have you felt included by Kenyans and by citizens?
Okay. First, I don't understand what discrimination is.
Okay. All right. Do you feel as though people... Yeah. Okay.
It's okay. Well, you know, when we are stigmatized, we feel bad. And now this is why I'm always speaking to people and telling them to stop stigmatizing us. We are all equal. So they should stop stigmatizing us, because we should be treated as normal children. We, as the HIV positive and the HIV negative, because we are all equal.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a powerful answer. Thank you for that. And I'll also move to Salat Abdi. Salat Abdi is the Cabinet Secretary of Children's Welfare and Special Needs, and he's been assisted by his translator, Susan Gati Mosetti. She's going to be translating on set. And maybe I can ask you, Salat, what have you done with your docket, trying to address the needs of children with special needs? What have you managed to do with your docket as the Cabinet Secretary for Children's Welfare and Special Needs?
Okay, I've worked out to make sure those children who have been hidden at home, they are brought back to school. We talk to the chief so that he can go to the villages and bring the children back. That all of them work together. They should not ignore the special needs children. They are all the same. The government should change and support the special needs children the same as the others who have no special needs. Plus, for example, assisting the deaf with hearing aids to make sure they can hear the news well like the others. The other problem is at home. There is a lot of discrimination between the special needs children and those who are not disabled. Thank you.
Okay. And maybe I can then bring this to you, Mr. Fidelis. and what the ministry, what the government is doing to address the needs of children living with special needs in Kenya. Salat has talked about hearing aids. Patricia would also probably talk about, as someone who's visually impaired, being able to get assistance with that. And to an extent, Elijah as well, children, vulnerable children living with HIV. What is being done to make sure that there's inclusion and that these issues are addressed?
Thank you very much, Janet. Indeed, the government is doing quite much in relation to the children with special needs. Children with special needs have schools where facilities related to their special needs are provided. You know, the special needs are various. We have those with hearing difficulties, those with visual difficulties, and those with physical difficulties. Those schools provide those facilities. But those schools are mainly for those who have extreme disabilities. There are those whose disabilities are minor who are in integrated schools. So you find a school with regular pupils, but there's a unit for special needs, and so they're able to mingle with the others. The others have an opportunity to understand them, and at the same time they have special teachers who are trained to deal with them in terms of their special needs.
Danny Kinara, as the president of the National Children's Government, would you like to comment on this? I'd also want to hear from Patricia about that, whether you think enough has been done to include children with special needs and integrate them as well.
Well, the children government has passed some resolutions, of which one was inclusive classrooms, and to say that the government, we appreciate all that they have done to provide braille for the visually impaired and the hearing aids to the deaf, but I'd also like to call upon them to add on to what they have been doing. We appreciate the good job, but then we are far from the truth, and by truth I mean the people out there who are disabled are many, and to reach out to them, it will be a task that they need to look upon and look at it seriously, not just to help them, but also communication amongst the people living with no disabilities and the people with disabilities.
Okay. Before we move on from that, maybe Patricia Kamene, Deputy Speaker, if you can comment briefly on whether you feel, as a young woman, as a student, as a girl living with, I know you mentioned it's not a disability, it's an ability, it's not an inability. I think Patricia once mentioned that to me. But still, as someone living as visually impaired, do you think that we are making progress in Kenya to include children like you in everyday society, or are we still very far away from achieving that goal? Very briefly.
Okay, we are not far away. But remember one thing, Janet Bugwa. Most of the disabled people, we are being hidden at home. Okay, we have this unit of special unit in each, some schools in our beautiful country. But who are going to be taught in those schools? Why the disabled are being hidden at home? What are we going to do to make sure all the disabled are not hidden at home, but they are in school learning? Okay. Education is the key of success, Janet Bugwa.
All right.
I love that word.
All right, thank you for that. Okay, and then I think we need to move along because there's so many other issues. Maybe for everyone, by show of hands, who is for ranking in schools? Recently, ranking was abolished. Who is for it? Who's against ranking? You're all against ranking in schools. Maybe Ronald and Pam, maybe you can tell us why you think it was a good idea for the government to do away with the school ranking.
Okay, first I can say that ranking, the abolishment of ranking was a very good move by the Ministry of Education, because the bad effects of ranking outdid the good effects of ranking. Previously we thought that ranking could make schools perform better through competition, through productive competition. But of late we've been hearing cases of cheating, cheating to the extent that it's massive in the school. It's a whole network in a certain school. So I think ranking will make the cheating go down in a way. I'll not say that it will abolish it completely, but it will make cheating go down in a way, and it also promote competition in other areas, because for the past years we've mainly been focusing on academic competition. But from I can say due to the abolishment of ranking, we can now focus on other forms of competition, such as sports, cleanliness, hygiene, other forms of competition. Yeah.
Okay. Halima, would you like to comment on that as well? Your thoughts on ranking? Halima, once again, is a national speaker from Nairobi County. You're against ranking? You're happy that it was abolished?
Yeah, I'm against ranking. As Ronald said, the badness outdid the goodness, and I'm sure that now we can have healthy competition. We can also have competitions on debate where children can conduct debates where they can air out their views, argue out issues that concern us, and come up with resolutions that can help us make a better Kenya.
Okay. All right. Fatma, do you want to comment?
Yeah, sure. I am definitely against the ranking. And on top of that, I would like to tell the government that they should try to make our education less rather exam-oriented.
Okay.
So sports should be taken really seriously, because I'm sure not everyone is good upstairs. Yeah? Not everyone is good.
People are better with skills maybe than maybe something. Okay, yes. I see what you mean. Do you want to comment, Caroline, before I also give Mr. Fidelis a chance here?
Just to sum about what my friends have said, ranking rather had a bad effect on students, especially in schools, because you could see all the schools are struggling to be at the top position, to be privileged, to be known as, you know, the better school. But ranking being abolished has provided the chance for students who are mainly talented, like in music, in arts, in dancing, in other stuff, to come out and showcase what they're gifted in.
Okay. You want to add something quickly?
Yeah, I have a question to pose to the citizens of Kenya, to you, Janet, to Mr. Nahulo, and at Kenyans at large. Do you think KCPE ex-candidate who's as young as 13 years old can be able to go to a technical school and, you know, do manual work, study on that? I believe that is not fair, and the government and all the other involved, the ones who are in charge of that, should come up with an alternative way for a way forward for the kids who are out of school, and they should continue with their secondary education, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's quite a bit for you to address here, just in terms of meeting the gap. Of course, they've all talked about the fact that they agree that the abolishment of the ranking system works for the better. I believe most of them did. But just like Halima said, what about those who are who didn't perform well but need to continue with schooling, bridging that gap and ensuring that their education continues regardless of perhaps how they performed? What is the ministry doing to address that?
Yeah, first of all, Janet, I'd like to appreciate that even the learners agree with the ministry that we should not have ranking. And I hope those who are fighting the ministry on this are also watching. Now, first of all, ranking, the way it has been going on, really, is the wrong thing. What we should be doing is helping the learners to compare their actual performance with their abilities. They should be ranking themselves in relation to what they should be able to achieve. But there should be no competition. They should be cooperating so that they can achieve. So therefore, ranking should not even arise.
Yeah.
And the minister, during the release of KCPE results, enumerated 11 points
on
the ills associated with the ranking. And he said he could have continued.
Okay. What about the issue of taking things like you know, sports and extracurricular a lot more seriously, to include those who have better artistic or sporting abilities over those who are more academically inclined? Are there plans to include that, to push that as an agenda?
In fact, Janet, we don't just have plans, but we've developed tools which we are going to use to merit schools, where we are looking at different parameters, not just academic, but we're looking at, for example, the leadership in the school. We're looking at the co-curricular activities that they participate in. We're looking at the infrastructure development in the school. We're looking at how friendly the school is in terms of the inclusiveness. Is it welcoming every child?
So that's something that's now ongoing.
It is on.
And at what point will we see some kind of change or results, or something new being established to include those children who are, like I said, better at sports or better at music, to try and make sure that they also have a future in Kenya. Is there a sense that in the next few years we'll be able to see that come to be?
Already we are seeing it.
Okay.
We have talent academies which are tapping on the talents that children have, and there are quite a number who have come out and they have been able to shine in their talent areas.
Okay.
Now, in school, perhaps the focus on exams and success in exams has made most schools neglect non-examinable subjects. Music, home science, and other creative arts have been left out because teachers are focusing on producing people with high grades.
Okay.
So now the removal of ranking is going to widen the scope.
Okay.
The use of this meriting tool is going to make them now focus on all the areas of a school because we want to produce a holistic
Okay,
child.
we'll definitely be looking out for that, how it pans out. Before we take a look at social media, Daniel Kinaro, again, the president of the National Children's Government, wants to comment on something very briefly before we take a look at...
I heard Mr. Nahulo comment on neglecting the non-formal, or more so the ones that are to do with books. And I'd like to put out a proposal. You don't expect a child 13 years of age, or rather use me for size.
Yeah.
Do you think I'd work in metal works in a technical college or something? We'd like for these examples of like arts, home science and all this stuff, they should like put up an arts college or something like that, where pupils will, talents in them. It's like intellectuality versus innovativeness.
All right.
For those who are intellectual, they can move on, but those who don't find it, they don't, as in, really focus on or track with everyone in education.
Okay.
So just do what the talents that they have in them
and be able to
and using the, as in, not, we don't all have to be, to be, as Fatma said, something about upstairs and all. I'm just saying that it's not just
hold the microphone.
It's not just about the brains.
It's about talent as well.
It's about talent and the things we possess in
all
ourselves.
Right. I don't know whether we can go around and just asking my director and get a closing comment from everyone now before we take a look at feedback. Can we do that? Or do we? Okay. She said it just. There's so much that we can talk about. And as always, there's never enough time. So what I want to do now is go around asking each of you if you can very briefly tell me about the Kenya that you visualize for yourself, the vision that you have for the country. And I think we can start with Caroline at the back there. Caroline Minor, once again, president of the Nairobi Student Council. What is the Kenya that you want to see for yourself and for future generations?
For me, personally, the Kenya I visualize in my head is a Kenya where there are no street children at all. Because as a child, you don't deserve to live on the street, to live in hunger, to live in cold, to live like you don't have love and care and support from anyone in the world. I would like a Kenya where all children have a home, have a shelter, and have someone to care for them, as it should be.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much for that. Let's now move to Clinton Chase, the Minister for Justice, Peace and Cohesion from the National Children's Government, representing Homa Bay County as well. The Kenya that you want to see, Clinton.
Okay, as for me, I want to see a Kenya that justice, equity and equality is practiced. I want to see a Kenya that is a drug-free Kenya. And I also want to see a Kenya that all pupils, all pupils who have reached the school age to go to school, all of them, not excluding the ones who are in the streets. Okay.
Thank you. Then we can hand it back to Patricia Kamene as well, the Kenya that you want to see, Deputy Speaker Kangundo.
Okay, as to me, the Kenya that I want, full of educated people, full of peace, love, and harmony. Remember one thing, we have this issue of albino being sold to another country, being killed. They are human beings. They deserve to live in this beautiful country of ours. I love their beautiful skin. I admire their beautiful skin. So they deserve to live in this beautiful world. The Kenya that I want to see is that the Kenya that, as disabled, we have freedom to walk around our areas, our big city, without any guide. We want to depend on ourselves. That is the Kenya that I want.
All right, thank you for that, Patricia. We'll also hear from Fatma Omar, the Deputy President for the National Children's Government and the Kenya that you want to see.
Well, I would like to add on something before I say the Kenya that I want. So I will quote Article 12. It states that children have the right to say what they think should happen when adults are making decisions that affect them and to have their opinions taken into account. So that obviously means that we need to be involved in any decision making, because I believe that you're building this country for us, and obviously you would want the best for your country. And to also add on that, I would like a country where we are free from corruption, free from tribalism and nepotism. Yeah, that's all I can say.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Fatma. Let's now hear from Ronald Griffiths, the President of the National Student Council, about the Kenya that you want to see.
Okay, thank you very much, Janet, for asking me that question. So what I could say personally, the Kenya that I would like to have, or the Kenya that I would love to have, is a country that we are all equal. Let me give a very good example. In terms of race, as you can see, I'm a little bit lighter as compared to all the rest. So in some situations, you can go to a shop. Let's say Danny and I go to a shop. We are completely different people. But maybe the shop attendant will tend to focus on me more. Like maybe I'll be the first person to be catered for in the shop. So I'd like a situation whereby we are all equal. If Danny was the first one to get over there, he's the one who's supposed to be treated first. This focuses for the children and also for the citizens of Kenya.
All right, powerful. Thank you very much for that. Let's now hear from Halima Ismail, National Speaker from Nairobi County, the Kenya that you want to see.
Yeah, thank you, Janet. The Kenya that I want to see is a Kenya of visionary leaders. Leaders, not managers. Leaders that build the country for the children. Leaders that build the country for the citizens and not for themselves. And for the children, I'd like to see us as children who would want a Kenya where we have a free, open, an environment which is conducive for learning, conducive where we can nurture our talents. And I'd like to call onto the county government to at least have a sports center where children can go in and out, where we can nurture our talent. Most of us don't even know what our talent is, so that we can know, nurture, and build our nation. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that, Halima. And then we can also hear from Danny Kinaro, the President of the National Children's Government, the Kenya you want to see.
I'd like to quote Article 6 of the Convention on the Rights of Children, where it states that a child has the right to live a full life, where the government has ensured the pupil of healthy living and a life that is secure. And as children, and also as more so adults tell us that, and our parents more so tell us that they are building this country for us.
Yeah.
So I'd like to say that just as they say that, we'd also like to live a full life in which that we are listened to, and leaders have our interests at heart, not just for their gain and for their better living, but for the people who are going to be leading this country in years to come.
All right. Thank you very much for that. Elijah Zachary, what is the Kenya that you want to see?
Okay, now the Kenya which I want to see, it's the education. Like now, the way other children are locked at home and they can't be let to go to learn. Now they can't even learn. So, and sometimes you must focus on education because not watching cartoons and in all the time in social media, or you're playing all the time. When you focus on education, in KCPE you might pass very well.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And do something with your life. Thank you so much for that, Elijah. Now we'll hear from Salat Abdi, Cabinet Secretary for Children's Welfare and Special Needs, also representing Wajir County, the Kenya that you want to see.
The Kenya I want is for the government to support the special needs children, and they have the right to have education, and make sure they keep them away from dangerous objects and people. They also support the disabled children whose families are poor, who cannot afford to pay for them school fees. He also wants a Kenya where people know sign language, where they can be able to communicate with the deaf. He also wants a Kenya where every county is developed, not any other place which is not developed. Like those places where they don't have water, they should be developed and good roads.
Okay. Wow. So powerful. And all of them are aged between 11 and 18. Obviously very confident and have the interests of the children in their hearts. We're going to take another short break and come back with some of the sports highlights and your feedback on Monday Special with Hussein Mohammed as well. Hussein will be here in just a few moments. We'll take a short break and we'll be right back.